They said my wedding dress was ugly, too bold, too revealing. Tomb. They laughed. They tried to replace it. One even tried to steal it. Hi, I'm Savina Ray. And the dress they tried to erase? It's now under glass in a museum, my name in gold beneath it. For years, I was the quiet one in the family, the placeholder, the girl who stepped aside so her sister could shine. But when they asked me to surrender the aisle at my own wedding, just so my sister could walk first, I stopped playing along. Have you ever been told to shrink yourself for someone else's spotlight? That you were too much? Or worse, not enough? Drop a comment. I read every single one. Because this isn't just a story about a wedding dress. It's about reclaiming your place, one stitch at a time. Now let me show you exactly how it happened. You're asking me to give up my aisle? In my own wedding? That was the moment it snapped. Not loudly, not with fire, but with that kind of silent, cold clarity that makes you realize you've been set up for years. And this is just the punchline. We were in my parents' living room. The walls still smelled faintly of lavender and old wood, like memories you didn't choose but couldn't quite get rid of. A faded photo collage hung on one wall, mostly Delaney, of course. Her prom photo, her yoga with dolphins retreat, her smiling face holding a store-bought cake. My corner photo was crooked, slightly sun-faded, like an afterthought. The coffee had gone cold. I was seated at the edge of the beige couch, a file folder on my lap, filled with planning documents I had compiled meticulously over the past 6 months. A swan-shaped napkin from a previous bridal expo I attended peeked from between the pages. I had folded it myself. It was a callback to something soft. Now it just looked ridiculous. Elaine, my mother, was stirring her tea in slow, rehearsed circles, eyes never meeting mine. Ronald, my father, was at the dining table flipping through the printed papers like he was skimming a business proposal. And then there was Delaney, legs crossed, dressed like she was about to be photographed for a lifestyle blog, her face a study in calculated sympathy. She smelled like vanilla lemon body mist, her signature scent since she was 16. I hated how familiar it was. "We're just thinking," Elaine began, voice soft, "that since Delaney is the older sister, it might be symbolic if she walked down the aisle first." I blinked. "Symbolic," I repeated. "She's been through a rough patch," Dad added without looking up. "This would mean a lot to her. Closure, you know." My mouth opened and closed. I searched for the right words, but all I found was a long, slow ache unfurling in my chest. "You're asking me," I said quietly, "to let her walk the aisle before me, in my own wedding." Elaine reached for a napkin and dabbed at an imaginary crumb. "You've always been the strong one, Savina. You don't need the spotlight." The sentence dropped like poison. I had heard it before. Different versions, same verdict. Strong meant silent. Strong meant sacrifice. And it wasn't new. I remembered my 12th birthday. Delaney had a last-minute soccer banquet. My cake, chocolate raspberry mousse, was set aside in the fridge, for later. We never got to it. The next morning, it was gone. No one ever mentioned it again. Delaney tilted her head with a faux apologetic smile. "It's not like we're taking anything from you, Vina. You still get the vows. It's just..." She walks first. Micah, my fiancé, shifted next to me. He'd stayed quiet for most of the meeting, out of respect. But now I felt his hand tense where it rested on his knee. He was wearing the sweater my Aunt Jo gave him, the one she had patched by hand. I glanced at the stitches. They were stronger than they looked. I inhaled slowly. "Let me see the funding papers again," I said. Dad slid the folder toward me. I opened it. At the bottom, where my signature had once been, was a thick red line drawn across it. Next to it, notes in red ink. "Delaney needs this more. Savina may not follow through." I stared. You crossed me out, I said. Elaine's voice was syrupy sweet. It's just temporary. Once things settle, you'll give me my wedding back? I asked, voice steel flat. Silence. I'm not a placeholder, I said, standing up. And I'm done pretending you see me as anything else. Dad frowned. Savina, don't make this dramatic. We're still funding everything. That means something. No, I said, picking up my phone and hitting a small red icon, a soft beep. That means leverage. Micah stood too. We're leaving. Elaine moved as if to follow. Sweetheart, let's not ruin a happy moment. Too late, I said, already walking toward the door. On the side table near the exit was a childhood photo, one of the few of me. I paused. My face had a faint scratch across it, like someone tried to erase me with a thumbnail but stopped halfway. Or maybe that was just the lighting. Or maybe it wasn't. At the threshold, I paused. The air felt heavier outside, but at least it was real. The sky was pale blue, clouds sharp-edged like decisions made too late. Micah looked at me, quietly asking without words if I was okay. I didn't answer. I reached into my phone, saved the recorded conversation, and forwarded it to a folder titled Wedding. Mine. And as I walked down the path to the car, I stepped on a lemon-scented decorative sachet that had fallen from Delaney's tote bag. It split underfoot. The scent that rose wasn't calming. It reeked. She won't wear anything unless we approve it, or it disappears. The sentence clung to my spine like static. I'd overheard it, not in person, but through Micah's phone, on speaker, one lazy afternoon while I was folding laundry. It was Delaney's voice, smug, certain, scented with that particular kind of entitlement only someone raised on centerpieces and comparisons could produce. I didn't flinch when I heard it. Not anymore. That's when I knew. My dress wasn't just a personal choice. It had become a line in the sand. The boutique I chose wasn't one of those Pinterest-wrapped bridal emporiums with overzealous attendants and champagne flutes. It was tucked between a used bookstore and a dry cleaner in East Atlanta, its awning faded, but its soul intact. Owned by Joelle, an aging designer with a sharp tongue and sharper scissors, it smelled of thread, roses, and defiance. This the one causing all that drama? Joelle asked, pinning the hem. I stood in front of a tall antique mirror, wearing a blush-toned A-line gown with delicate embroidery over the bodice. No sleeves, no corset, just power disguised as grace. Yes, I said. Apparently, it's too revealing for family pictures. Joelle snorted. Good. That means it's working. Micah sat across the room, sipping his coffee and pretending not to beam. He had helped me stash the dress here weeks ago, locked behind a steel cabinet in the back, labeled, "Do not touch." Seriously. It wasn't just precaution. It was survival. It wasn't the first time someone tried to dress me into silence. I remembered my 8th grade graduation. I had begged to wear the navy wrap dress I'd saved up for all semester with babysitting money. Delaney had shown up last minute in a white satin mini with sequins, and Mom had told me, "Change. You don't want to compete, do you?" I had. But I changed anyway. Or senior picture day. Mom forced me into a beige blouse 3 sizes too big because Delaney's wearing blue and we don't want you clashing. She said it was about harmony, but all I saw was erasure. Even my first homecoming, my dress was pinned higher in the shoulders while I was asleep the night before. Elaine called it modesty. I called it sabotage. So no, this time wasn't about fabric. It was about finality. You see, I'd already received their dress. It had come in a long, heavy box with ivory ribbon. The note in Mom's slanted cursive read, "Delaney helped pick it. Thought you'd appreciate something more modest." Classic inside was a high-collared, long-sleeved satin gown that looked like it had been pulled from a funeral in 1985. Thick lace, boxy shoulders, a waistline that seemed designed to erase me. I hadn't tried it on. I hadn't even taken it fully out of the box. Instead, I had shoved it beneath the guest bed. Let it rest there, like the ghost it was. But Delaney hadn't given up. The boutique had cameras, discreet but functional. And one evening while Joelle was out, and the lights were dim, the sensor pinged. Micah's phone buzzed first. "She's there," he said simply, handing it to me. The footage was crisp. Delaney entered using a key she shouldn't have had, copied from a visit months ago, we assumed. The boutique was mostly dark except for one overhead track light near the display mirror. Her heels clicked against the tile, sharp and erratic, echoing through the quiet space. The camera above the mirror caught everything, her searching, her scowling, her rifling through bags with frantic fingers. She tore through tissue paper, tossed accessory boxes aside. At one point, she hissed, "She better not be playing games." Then, louder, "If she won't wear the dress we gave her, she won't wear anything." Have you ever had someone try to strip away your joy just because they couldn't control it? That cruel moment when love turns into manipulation. If you've ever lived through that, drop a comment number 7 below. Now let me show you how I started to take it all back. I stared at the footage for a long time, not because it shocked me, but because of how not shocked I was. Her silhouette in the grainy footage looked strangely small, cornered by her own arrogance. As she stormed out, the light above flickered briefly, casting her shadow twice, one angry, one fading. Joelle watched beside me the next day, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "She thinks she can bully cloth into obedience," she said. I nodded slowly. "She thinks I'll back down. She forgets who stitched this one." The dress wasn't just hidden, it was guarded. Joelle had stored it behind a decoy bag labeled "Alteration Pile, Do Not Touch," and beneath the lining I had hand-stitched a label myself. In gold thread, tiny but deliberate, it read, "For the real bride." Later that afternoon, I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote to Caleb Voss, a renowned designer. Voss had once spoken at my college design seminar. His aesthetic was bold but minimal, revolutionary in how it honored autonomy over tradition. I had admired him quietly for years. I sent him a photo, me, in Joelle's mirror, wearing the blush gown. No caption, just the image. Then I added a second message. They called it ugly. I call it mine, wondering where you stand. Hours later, he replied, "Not ugly, unapologetic. When you're ready, I'd like to feature this piece in our Modern Legacy series. Not after the wedding. Now." My heart knocked against my ribs. I showed it to Joelle. She clapped once, sharp and proud. "You just outplayed them with fabric," she said. I sent the confirmation back, with a note, "Available post-ceremony. It'll be worn once, then retired forever." That night, I opened the old family group chat, the one that used to buzz daily with wedding decisions, until I stopped being consulted. I scrolled up until I found a message Delaney once wrote, "We just want Savina to feel beautiful, in a way that photographs well." I laughed under my breath. The irony was almost cinematic. Micah looked up from his laptop. "What?" "I think I'm finally ready to stop shrinking," I said. He leaned in, eyes steady. "Then let's make them small instead." "You wanted control? Here's a plaque with a different legacy." The sun glared off the polished stone steps of Langley Court as I approached the main entrance of the wedding venue. A grand colonial revival estate tucked away in Marietta, Georgia. It looked like something out of a political drama. White columns, manicured hedges, and power stitched into every brick. The kind of place my parents would have killed to be photographed in front of. And they would be. just not the way they imagined. I paused before stepping inside, letting my fingers trail across the edge of the donor recognition wall. It was carved from reclaimed wood, rustic and elegant, with brass plaques evenly spaced in neat rows. The newest one gleamed beneath the morning light, in honor of Margaret E. Langley, whose quiet strength built this family. Margaret Langley, my grandmother, the only one who had ever looked me in the eye without asking me to shrink. It felt poetic, and it was deliberate. 3 days earlier, Micah and I had submitted the official donor paperwork for the venue's sponsorship listing. $10,000, routed through a small LLCI registered quietly in Joelle's back office. The name? Langley Grant Initiative. It sounded proper enough to pass scrutiny, sentimental enough to spark curiosity. Micah called it disruption with taste. I called it overdue. When the final plaque list came through, I had stared at the PDF for a long time. My mother had asked weeks before if they could be listed as co-sponsors. "It's just to show family unity," she'd said, hand on my shoulder like a campaign manager. But family unity had been redefined, and this time, I was the editor. I walked through the side entrance of the venue to meet the coordinator, a woman named Teresa with a clipboard that might as well have been welded to her arm. Her schedule was tight, but when she saw me, she smiled. "You're the bride," she said, checking my name on her list. "We've installed the plaque. It looks stunning." "It's perfect," I replied. That evening, I forwarded the unveiling photo to the family group chat without a caption. Just the image, the brass plate shining under sunlight. No reaction for 10 minutes. Then a ping. Elaine Ray. Wait, this wasn't the agreement. Another ping. Ronald Ray. Why is her name on it? I thought we were the sponsors? Micah, sitting beside me on the couch, sipped his tea and chuckled. Brace for follow-up outrage in 3, 2. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text. "We need to talk." This is not appropriate. Appropriate. A favorite word of theirs. Another way to say, doesn't serve our narrative. I closed my phone, stood up, and walked into the spare room. Hanging on the back of the door was the guest list spreadsheet we'd been refining for weeks. On it, I had highlighted rows in green, confirmed, trusted. Rows in orange, potential disruptors. In red, family. We weren't cutting them, yet, but we were containing them. The next morning, we met with the venue staff for a pre-event logistics review. Elaine and Ronald arrived unannounced halfway through the session, walking in with faux casual smiles and tension radiating from their elbows. "We just wanted to see the layout," Elaine said, eyes scanning the walls. They spotted the plaque in less than 20 seconds. Elaine stepped toward it slowly, her heels whispering against the floorboards. Her eyes narrowed as she read the inscription. Ronald stood behind her, silent but visibly tensing. Teresa greeted them politely. "It's a beautiful tribute, isn't it?" Elaine turned. "We were told we'd be listed as primary donors." Teresa, unbothered, replied, "All donor recognition is based on processed funding, and this one was filed under a foundation honoring the bride's grandmother, fully approved." Micah and I said nothing. Ronald cleared his throat. "Well, I assume we can have ours added?" Teresa smiled politely. "That would require a formal submission and additional contribution, and there's limited space." Elaine's jaw tightened. Micah spoke for the first time. "We wanted the legacy to reflect someone who never asked to be seen, but always deserved to be." Elaine didn't look at him. She looked at me. "You're making a spectacle," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "I'm building something honest." They didn't stay long after that. As they left, I saw Elaine glance back once, eyes not at me, but at the plaque. That night, Aunt Jo called. She had seen the photo in the chat. "Your grandmother would have cried," she said softly. She'd also have brought her own folding chair if you forgot to set one, I said, smiling. Joe laughed and sat proudly in the sun. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and looked at the email confirmation from the venue again. I highlighted the line that said, "Plaque installed, per bride's request, under exclusive legacy access." My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Then I typed back, "Confirmed." This is only the beginning. Some guests bring joy when they arrive, others, when they're locked out. I reread the sentence at the top of my new wedding spreadsheet, smirking. Micah had typed it there in bold font, like a thesis statement. I hadn't asked him to. He just knew. The document itself was simple. 2 columns, 2 truths. One labeled real, one labeled replica. Real guests were easy to list. Aunt Jo, Joelle, a handful of college friends who remembered my middle name, a few co-workers who'd seen me stay late and stay silent. Replica guests, on the other hand, were trickier. They needed convincing and distraction. We started designing 2 sets of invitations. The first set, navy blue with embossed gold edges, carried the real venue address, Langley Court, of course, and a private RSVP site linked to Micah's custom domain. The second set looked even fancier, but cheaper inside. Cream vellum, lavender ribbon, and a link to a dummy RSVP page that led nowhere. Those were the ones we mailed to Elaine, Ronald, Delaney, and the inner circle of what Micah jokingly called team control. "Are you sure they'll fall for it?" I asked. Micah grinned. "They think they're the puppeteers. That's exactly why they won't see the strings." Have you ever realized that the only way to win was to rewrite the rules entirely? That moment when you stop asking for permission and start designing the whole game. If that's ever been you, drop a comment number 9 below. Now let me show you how we rewrote the guest list. And the ending. The decoy venue was perfect, an upscale but unused property downtown, under renovation. I had connections from a friend in historic preservation who let us borrow it for 1 day. No utilities, no security, no liability. Just a locked gate and a beautiful front facade. I added a fake event listing to the building's registry just in case they Googled it. Private photo shoot, Luxe Bridal Collective. It sounded exclusive enough to satisfy their egos. We timed the invitations to arrive with deliberate precision, 1 day before the final walkthrough of the real venue, so their attention would be elsewhere. Elaine called 2 hours after receiving hers. "It's beautiful," she said sweetly. "Just perfect. I love the lavender touch." I smiled into the phone. "You've always liked soft tones." "I assume we're still expected to dress formal?" "Of course," I said. "It's your daughter's wedding." Delaney texted me separately. "Delaney, what time should I arrive? I want to walk through the aisle before guests get there." I stared at the message. Me. "Doors open at 11. Come early." She replied with a heart emoji. The night before the ceremony, Micah and I sat on the floor of our apartment, folding last-minute name cards. His handwriting was neater than mine. As he inked Joelle's place tag, I paused. "Do you think they'll be angry?" "They'll be furious." "Do you think I'll feel guilty?" "No," he said without looking up. "But they'll expect you to." He was right. That morning, while the real venue buzzed with quiet preparation and Joelle adjusted my hem one final time, we received the notification. Motion detected. 10:42 a.m. Decoy venue front gate. Micah opened the live feed on his phone. There she was. Delaney stood at the gate in a full bridal gown. White, beaded, dramatic train. Hair curled perfectly. Makeup flawless. She paced with clipped movements, then pulled at the gate, locked. A man in a black blazer approached from the corner. One of the building's renovation supervisors briefed in advance. "Excuse me," Delaney snapped. "I'm the bride." He tilted his head. This is a closed property. My wedding is scheduled here. No, ma'am, it's not. Delaney's voice cracked. This was supposed to be mine. He didn't argue, just pointed to the sign. Private event, no entry. By appointment only. The video cut off when she threw her bouquet at the iron bars. Micah nearly dropped his phone from laughing. I didn't. I just watched. A few moments later, Teresa from the real venue entered my bridal suite. Everyone's in place. It's time. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and nodded. Outside, the music started. My aisle, my timing. As I walked past the floral archway, I caught a glimpse of the guest list. Every seat filled with someone I had chosen, not inherited. My name tag shimmered at the head table, centered, flanked by Micah's and Aunt Joe's. No second row. No folding chair near the exit. No shared spotlight. We said our vows under the slow Georgia sun. Micah's hand didn't tremble. Mine did. But not from fear. And when we kissed, it wasn't the dramatic cue from movies. It was quiet. It was real. After the ceremony, I stepped aside to sip water near the service tent. Aunt Joe found me, pressed a napkin into my hand. You did it, she whispered. You married right, you married free. I smiled. My phone buzzed. A video was going viral. Delaney, in her gown, screaming outside the wrong venue. Mascara streaked, voice breaking. I am the bride. A security guard's voice, calm and final. There's already a bride inside. Since you love making speeches for me, let me return the favor. I heard Micah's voice before I saw him. Calm, deliberate, amplified just enough to quiet the room. The reception tent fell into a hush. Forks paused mid-air, wine glasses stilled. I froze near the edge of the crowd, bouquet still in hand. This wasn't part of the program. But of course, that was the point. He stepped up to the stage, holding the tablet we'd preloaded the night before. He looked out at the sea of carefully chosen faces, co-workers, cousins I actually liked, old friends who remembered my middle name. Not a single Ray among them. The lights above the tent dimmed ever so slightly, shifting to a warm amber tone as the projector lit up behind him. The string quartet, cued with a subtle signal, stopped mid-measure. Guests turned instinctively. You could feel the breath of the room hold. Micah tapped the screen. The first slide appeared. Audio excerpt, family planning, 3 weeks before wedding. A few murmurs, one audible, oh no. Then the recording began. Mom's voice, crisp and clipped, echoed through the space like a polished knife. Savina doesn't need the spotlight. She never has. Let Delaney have this. Then Ronald. If she pushes back, we pull the plug. It's our money. Our name. Then Delaney, gleeful and biting. Come on, it's just one more thing. She's already marrying first. Let me walk the aisle. She won't fight. The tent went dead silent. Someone gasped near the cake table. Another whispered, Is this real? I stepped forward. My heels were soft on the grass, but I could feel the ground pulsing like a heartbeat beneath me. I walked past tables, past the floral centerpieces that matched none of Elaine's suggestions, to the small platform where Micah stood. He handed me the mic without a word. The audio cut out. Silence expanded. I looked at them. My people, not theirs. I was told I would always fade, I said, voice steady. That I'd get over it. That I didn't need a name on the wall, or a seat at the table, or even the truth. But today, I didn't fade. I walked in white. I married the man I chose. And I stood up. Not just for me, but for the girl who spent years being told to make room. From the second row, someone let out a quiet, damn. A woman near the aisle placed a hand over her heart. Aunt Joe was already crying. Joelle nodded from the back, lifting her glass silently. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The applause started small, then it swelled. Real, unforced. A standing ovation not for survival, but for refusal. It wasn't the clapping of obligation, it was the sound of recognition. Back at the head table, Micah leaned over and whispered, "You stole the whole reception from a ghost." I laughed. A sound from somewhere deep, somewhere long denied. Later that night, while the dancing picked up and drinks flowed, I slipped away to the perimeter of the garden, phone in hand. I watched the video again. Delaney, at the locked gate, screaming, her voice cracking, her train dragging. "I am the bride!" The security guard's calm response, "There's already a bride inside." The clip had over 230,000 views. In the group chat Micah had created for our event management team, someone sent another file, the extended version of the audio. This time with timestamps, location metadata, and the date, 2 days after my family had assured me we were working together. Micah messaged me privately, "We release this?" I hesitated. Not out of fear, out of calculation. Before I could answer, another message appeared. "Delaney Ray, you humiliated us. This isn't what family does." I stared at it. Micah peeked over my shoulder. "Want me to handle it?" I shook my head. I typed back, "Then maybe family isn't what you think it is." And I hit send. Micah grinned. "Still want to go light?" "Light," I said, "was never their default. Why should it be mine?" He slipped a Bluetooth speaker from under the table, pressed play. The first chords of our Not Allowed wedding song began to play, one my mother had vetoed as too cinematic. But tonight, it felt perfect. The next day, the clip aired on a mid-tier gossip site that picked up viral wedding stories. Then a fashion blog reposted the footage, not for the drama, but for the dress. The caption read, "Bride of the Year. Her family tried to hijack her wedding. She hijacked the narrative." Comments poured in. Some praised the poise, others loved the embroidery. One woman wrote, "I showed this to my daughter and told her, this is what boundary setting looks like." Another read, "I wish I had walked away like she did. Instead, I kept shrinking. Never again." And somehow that hit harder than anything, because I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. It had become a mirror. Later that evening, Micah and I sat in the courtyard outside our suite. Candles flickered on the table between us. The low murmur of music drifted from the dance floor. Fireflies blinked in and out like quiet applause. He took my hand, kissed the top of it, and said, "You good?" I didn't answer. I just looked up at the stars, and for once, didn't feel like a satellite to someone else's orbit. The dress they mocked? It's now under glass, with my name in gold. 2 weeks after the wedding, I stood in the center of the Voss Design Museum in downtown Atlanta, staring at the display case that held my dress. The same blush-toned gown Joelle had helped me tailor, the one Delaney had tried to sabotage, the one they had called too much, too bold, too exposed, too me. Now it stood upright behind low iron glass, spotlit from above, its embroidery catching the light like fireflies. The entire hall was dim except for that spotlight, like the world had finally decided to let one thing shine alone. Beneath it, on a brass plaque, Savina Ray, Private Collection, donated post-ceremony, worn once, remembered forever. The museum was quiet that morning. A press preview wouldn't start until later, but Caleb had let me in early, said it was only fair I saw it in peace. The curator, a woman with short gray hair and perfect posture, stood quietly at the back. Every so often she glanced at me, then at the dress, like trying to memorize both. Micah stood a few feet back, hands in his pockets. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. I reached out, touched the glass. It was cold, solid, unbreakable. and so was I now. I remembered the night I tried to bake my dad a birthday cake, chocolate with raspberry frosting. I was 10. Delaney showed up late with a red velvet one from a fancy bakery. No one touched mine. It sat on the counter until I quietly threw it away after dinner. That memory used to sting. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. They didn't forget me. They erased me. Again and again. But this time, I left something behind they couldn't edit. When we left the museum, sunlight hit the pavement outside like a soft epilogue. The city felt slower. Or maybe I had caught up to it. Aunt Jo's house was already warm with the scent of something floral and baked. She had promised a small celebration, no drama, and she kept her word. Her home smelled like chamomile and old paperbacks. A chocolate raspberry mousse cake sat at the center of the table, perfectly centered, perfectly intentional. "I remembered what you actually like," she said, pouring tea. "Took me long enough." I smiled, a quiet one. "You always did. You just weren't loud about it." About 10 minutes into dessert, my youngest cousin wandered in. Talia. 9 years old, wild hair, bare feet, dirt on her knees. She plopped into the chair beside me, reached for a cookie, then paused. "I saw your wedding video," she said, mouth half full. "You were so brave." That hit deeper than any toast or headline. She swallowed, then added, "They always make me wear dresses I don't like." I leaned in, lowered my voice like we were exchanging state secrets. "One day," I said, "you'll wear what feels like you. And they'll just have to deal with it." Talia grinned, eyes wide. "Even if it has dragons on it?" "Especially if it has dragons." Back at home, I opened my laptop to archive some files. There was a message from Delaney. One sentence. "You're no sister to me." I stared at it for a long while. The old me would have replied, tried to fix it, soften the blow, offer a hand across a chasm she had dug. This version of me hit archive, not from spite, from peace. That night, I took out the photo frame I had kept hidden for years. It used to house a family portrait from when I was 16. The one where my head was half cut off because Delaney had leaned in front of me. I replaced it with a candid shot from the wedding. Me, walking down the aisle alone, no one flanking me, no bouquet shielding me. Just me, smiling, unedited. I could almost hear the music from that day again. That forbidden melody my mother once vetoed, now replaying in my memory like closure. I taped a handwritten note underneath it. Finally, I walked where I belonged. The next morning, I hung it in the hallway outside my bedroom, the same hallway that once held certificates and portraits I was always cropped out of. This time, the wall was mine. Later that week, a wedding blogger requested an interview. Not about the drama, she clarified, about the recovery, the choice to rebuild on your own terms. I told her I'd think about it. Instead, I brewed tea, grabbed a blank journal, and sat on the porch. I wrote a title across the top of the first page, "Things They Took Without Asking," things I took back. Then I began the list. 10 minutes later, I was still writing. The dress was already trending in bridal forums. Vogue reposted it with the caption, "One woman's rebellion becomes a legacy stitched in silk." Someone else tweeted, "She didn't just get married, she got even, with grace." A comment under the museum's announcement read, "My daughter and I stood in front of your dress today." She whispered, "Maybe I'll wear armor too." That one stayed with me the longest. I closed my journal and whispered to myself, "Yes, wear it, and never apologize again." Now I'm no longer the shadow at the edge of someone else's frame. I am fully myself, steady, seen, and no longer asking for space. I don't need their applause to validate my victory. Their silence is proof enough. I've learned that kindness is not silence, and forgiveness doesn't mean letting yourself be erased. Those who build power through control and manipulation will eventually face the truth. You can't keep ruling over a heart that's finally awake. How about you? Have you ever been pushed aside in your own family? Share your story, because maybe today is the day you begin to rewrite your own ending. And if you want to hear more powerful journeys like this one, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story.